All right, what's up, guys? It's Jeff with Lift to Thrive. You live and you learn a little bit, but I just recorded a 30-minute video with zero volume. So, going to attempt to do a little bit of a voiceover here that does not match what my floating head does a little bit down there. And we'll see if we can sync things up a little bit. This is a bit of a modified week because I had some vacation coming up later in the week. And so I decided not to rest on Sunday, which is one of my rest days, and just get the training going. Now, knowing that, I went into it with a little bit of a caution, knowing I might have to adjust a little bit this week. But to be honest, this session felt super solid. And we started off with some low bar squats here, and they went really well. So this is 355 pounds for 6 reps here, just looking at what I did several weeks ago and trying to beat it by a little bit. And it felt really smooth, so I was happy with that. And from there, moved on to 405, which the last time I had done 405 for these low bar squats, I was doing around, I think, just 2 reps here. And this time I was able to get it for a very solid set of 5 with some in the tank. So very happy with that. Couldn't ask for a smoother set there. And knowing that, moved on to 440 pounds. And because this was about 35 pounds over the last time I had done heavy low bar squats, I wanted to be a tiny bit conservative and leave it a little bit in the tank. So I only did 3 here. If I really wanted to push it, could have done 5, 4 at least, but 5 for sure, 5 very likely. But I wanted to keep composed, good technique and pressure, and again, just build momentum. And I knew I was going to have a bit of a condensed week, and so risking injury, there's just no sense in it, right? So this 440 for 3 felt really solid. It's 1 rep and 35 pounds more than my heaviest double in this training block, which you saw here at December 17th. Again, not much more than you can ask for there. And I'm a big fan. It's like, once you've really capped the work of the day, don't collect more fatigue than you need to. Trying to get more stress out of this is not going to give me that much more stimulus, but it is going to give me more fatigue that I have to manage and make sure that body is staying healthy later on. And that's just not worth it, right? From there, moved on to some snatches, and this is a snatch primer complex. Starting off with some muscle snatches, moving into some no foot hang snatches, and then finishing off with just a snatch single. That way I can prep the actual movement and make sure it's feeling smooth as I warm up. And these felt okay. My primer complex, and it went pretty smooth. Again, the muscle snatch is designed for that full extension, specifically for me, making sure I'm finishing with my legs, my quads. I do a fine job finishing with my hips usually, but a little bit too much horizontal force and not enough vertical force. So that's what I'm focusing on with these complexes. Then a little bit of no foot hang snatch allows me to focus on that last pull, pulling underneath a little bit, and finding a consistent catch position. From there, moved on to 195 pounds and did a decent muscle snatch there. Again, for a little while, that 185 mark was the cap point, and I didn't want to go much above that. But now 195 is pushing that limit up a little bit. So pretty happy with that. And sometimes it feels a bit odd when you're doing a few movements in a complex and it can get a little rusty. So moved on from there just to regular snatches. And I was moving up to a snatch 2 rep max today. That was the goal. But I was actually going to use singles to build up to it. That way I didn't accumulate too much fatigue on the way up. And the goal of the day was 235 pounds for 2, which would be a new 2 rep max. And that 215 went smooth. Here's 225 pounds. Again, went okay. Definitely getting happier with the pull, first and second pull, but still a little clunky with the last one. Now here was my 2 rep max, so hit 235 there, and a little bit of a scramble here because I had been doing it for single on the way up, and I wanted to make sure that I didn't throw things off too much when I actually got to the double in a timely manner. So could have been a little bit more crisp technique-wise for sure, but PRs rarely are perfect, so a 2 rep max there, and pretty happy with it overall. All right. Then we moved on to some clean and jerks, and I'm still trying to figure out where I want them in my program. But this was a perfect day to do them after doing some snatches and starting the week off with some technique work overall. So this was 295, and it moved pretty smoothly. And then we moved on to 315 pounds, which is the heaviest I've done in a little over a month. So I definitely think I'm gonna find a better spot for these clean and jerks, so they're not getting messed up with either being on too fatigued of a day after a bunch of heavy squats and snatches on a different day, right, the next day, or they're not being sort of neglected a little bit and only doing with like every minute on the minute. After that, finished on with some Spoto presses. And like I've been saying, man, Spoto presses have been going incredibly well. So this was my first kind of working set at 325 pounds for 8 reps. And I honestly just wanted to get 6, but after doing that, I figured I'd go for 2 more reps, which definitely is a personal rep or personal best there. And moved on to 340 pounds for 5. And this is for sure a block personal best. I don't know if I'm a lifetime, but really, really good quality, really good pause at the bottom, good stability in the chest, shoulders, triceps, lats. Really happy with that overall. After that set of 340, I finished with 2 sets of 330 pounds for 6 reps, and you'll see that right here. Yeah, and again, super happy with this. With Spotos, yeah, I want to push it. I want to push the envelope a little bit and hit some new reps and some new weights, but I always want to prioritize that control. That I think is the best way for these to progress. Is you should always prioritize good technique for sure, but the point of this one is the control, and so I really have to overemphasize that. And it builds incredible stability, strength, and a very smooth bar path. From there, moved on to day 2, where we started off with some conventional deadlifts. And this first set here, pretty smooth and easy, 275 for 6. And I wanted to really prioritize my hook grip a little bit more. So I held off on using the straps just quite yet. And this felt pretty good. So I was hoping this would go well overall, but a little bit from here, we started accumulating some fatigue. So decided to play a little bit conservative with some of my jumps and weights that I hit today, and really just wanted to chip away at something I had hit the previous time I did these deadlifts. So this was 418 for 4, and I could have done it for 6 more than likely, but again, I wanted to prioritize hook grip, and it got a little kind of slipping a little bit on after the 4th, and I didn't want to risk tearing anything in the thumb, skin, or callus. So capped it at 4, not too bad. And this felt okay and decent overall. But this next attempt was 488 pounds. And if you look here, the last time I did a set of 4 was 484 pounds. So it was just 4 pounds above that. Like I said, a pretty conservative jump overall. But with this being kind of a second day in a row and some limited rest days earlier in the week to accommodate for the travel coming up, it went a little more challenging than I would have hoped, to be honest. But usually a super solid training session after a previous solid training session is not that likely. There's going to be fatigue, and that's why you kind of don't want to push it too hard on a single session when you're feeling great, because that will carry over to making the next set a little bit more challenging. So this set was 448 pounds for 6, and I wanted to beat my previous 6 rep best, which I had done a while back. I think it was 440 or something along those lines. So I was able to beat that, but this definitely felt heavy near the end. I didn't want to do the last 2 reps, and a little bit more breakdown than I would like. Not too concerned about this risk-wise, but it's sort of a slippery slope. Like, it's not going to get cleaner if I just try to get more reps or more weight in here. So the next time I do this, I'm going to be a bit more conservative, and I probably will just try to match what I did to this session, but with more solid technique. From there, moved on to some bench press, and it was competition pause bench press. Started here with 315 for 6 as my last warm-up, and it felt really smooth. So 315 for 6 seems to be my best last warm-up at the moment. Does depend on the day, of course, but this is pretty solid overall. My first actual working set of the day was this 365 pounds for 4, which beats my set of 3 I did several weeks ago. I don't think it's a PR. I think my best is 5 reps here, but this was a really solid set and was kind of a nice sign of what was to come for the rest of this session. From there, moved on to 380 pounds and was going to attempt it for a double here. Now, my best 2 rep max is 385 pounds. So this is just 5 pounds under that, but it went really well. Very, very smooth. Happy with the pause, especially on that second rep. So smooth, in fact, I decided to do it for a second set of 2. Now, on paper, this is probably very close to my best bench press session that I've done. And so really, really happy with it. Again, happy with that second pause, and still feel like I could have done another rep there if I needed to. So that's a solid sign that some big PRs are to come. And after this super solid set of 385 pounds for 2, we moved on to my last set here of the day, which was 365 pounds for another set of 4. And like I said, on paper, this is probably one of my most solid bench press sessions. Really happy with the way it's going, and always looking to leave a tiny bit in the tank so I can build momentum into the next session without accumulating too much fatigue. From there, moved on to some high bar squats, and this was supposed to be a light high bar squat day. So admittedly, this is a bit heavier than I kind of probably anticipated, but warm-ups were feeling good. Actually, I had to do them really quickly. I literally just threw weight on, did a set, threw weight on, did a set with really no rest in between. But I was able to hit 2 doubles at 355, and this is actually 65% of my high bar max, which is 65% is my cap for my light squat days. So the fact that I've reached my cap is great. I'm not going to go any heavier than this on my light squat days. And yeah, was really happy with that overall. So super smooth. Okay, from there we moved on to day 3 and started it off with some front squats, a few lighter sets, and then got up to this 300 pounds for 3 here. And it went pretty smooth. I was thinking, all right, we're in for a good spot today for a personal best. Or not a lifetime personal best, but just a block personal best. But made the jump up to 335 pounds. And as you can see here, it didn't go quite as smoothly as I'd liked. I was hoping to do this for a set of 2. And the first one was pretty solid, but lost a little bit of focus on that second rep here just for a microsecond, and that was enough to cause me to fail a little bit. So I'll come back for it next time, but wasn't there today, and that's all right. From there, moved on to a quick back off set of 320 pounds for 2. I had looked at some of my previous best sets of 2 from the last month or 2, and 315 was there, so I wanted to beat it by just 5 pounds here, and this felt pretty solid. Like I probably could have done this for more, but I just wanted to finish this front squat session and come back the next time and hit some big PRs on it. So not bad overall. From there, we moved on to some snatch primers again, and doing some snatch high pulls right here, focusing on that full extension of the knees and the hips together. Then some muscle snatches, which prioritizes the same thing, but then starts to get that turnover, an aggressive second pull. And then we do a little bit of some dip power snatches here. Now kind of prioritizing that third pull a little bit, kind of finish the second and move into the third pull. And then some no foot hang snatches, which I like for helping me build a consistent foot position for when I catch the snatch. That went really well. So moved on to 145 pounds here. Nice snatch high pulls, muscle snatch, and some dip power snatches into some no foot hang snatches. This was 195 pounds, and the muscle snatch went well in the high pull, but that hang power snatch went terribly. So I decided to skip the no foot hang snatch and just go right into the snatch. Again, I'm trying to use these primers to support my snatches for the day, not create a circus act and throw everything off. So skip that hang full snatch and go right into a snatch. It went pretty terribly, to be honest. I was just thrown off from the set. And so that, again, that tells me that 195 pounds is still something I need to keep getting a little more crisp with my primers especially. So moved on to full snatch. I didn't do a crazy big jump, just 10 pounds up here and just doing a single full snatch. And that went pretty smooth. So moved on to 215 pounds here. This 215 pounds went clearly pretty awkward there. That's because I was trying to get a little bit more pressure on my toes. I was finding that you can see here a lot of the times I start to turn my feet as I'm moving from the first to the second pull. And I'm okay with that heel pressure, but if I have a little more pressure on my toes, the feet won't turn out and create that. But again, that just made it super awkward. So I'm gonna have to kind of continue to find that balance and see how I can keep my feet from turning, but not have it turn into this weird mess here. But it didn't feel heavy, and I knew that was responsible for messing up. So I decided just to pull more aggressively, went up to 225 pounds here, and it went really, really well. Was happy with that pull under, felt really smooth. And from there, decided to go up to 235 pounds. And I was starting to feel like I might have a personal best in the cards today, because 235 pounds, 245 pounds, or 235 pounds and 25 pounds felt really, really crisp. And I think just aggressively pulling under a bit more really made a difference. So moved on to 245 pounds. Now, this is kind of the territory where I've already been doing 10-pound jumps. And I don't like increasing the amount of weight that I make jumps with as the workout goes on. Sometimes that can throw your nervous system off a little bit if you were doing 10-pound jumps and then all of a sudden you start doing 15-pound jumps. And that can cause you to miss a weight that you shouldn't have missed, but it just felt odd. Well, at the same time, when you're only doing 10-pound jumps, that means you got to do more sets, which can fatigue you before hitting the big weights at the top. Because I went for this 265 pounds next and just kind of just miffed it, got into an awkward position, had a good kind of overall pull, but I think I just got probably in my head a little bit. I haven't been hitting these 90% pluses consistently, so lacked a little bit of confidence there. But finished the day off in terms of snatches with another single at 245 pounds, which is 90% of my best, and it went pretty smooth. So not quite in the realm of hitting a personal best on these yet, but I'm totally cool with that. Right now, it's all about building a base, at least for the next several months, because I want, 6 months from now to be in a place where I'm super happy with the strength and hitting some all-time personal bests. So I finished this session with some accessories here. Here are some plate-added pull-ups. And these felt pretty solid. These have been progressing really consistently lately. And I've always kind of have this small balance between pushing myself on these and just making sure my technique and quality is where I want it. But this is an added 35 pounds here, which is pretty solid. And then we moved on to the last training session before vacation to kind of cap off the week. And we really just had to squeeze this in between a really busy day. It was like a 10 to 12 hour work day with lots of coaching calls. So I did these pause sumo deadlifts a little bit earlier between the session. And what was nice is they're every minute on the minute. So it literally took me about 6 minutes to do this, with a few added minutes to get the weights all set up and put out and then put away. And that's why I stuck with these steel weights here, because they're super easy to get on. I don't have to use my deadlift jack or anything. So I can slide a 35 on the end, a 25, a 10, and then so on and so forth. And I was pretty fatigued at this point, but these felt decent. I definitely had a little bit of a lower back pump by the end, and was just trying to chip away at beating what I had done a little bit before, which was 395 pounds for several sets of 2. And I was able to do 405, 415, 420 for my last few sets here, which was pretty decent. And then I just had to squeeze in some low bar pause light squats between one of my next sessions later in the day. And that's pretty easy to do. But admittedly, the light squats didn't feel that light compared to what I would have liked. Obviously, the 154 and 264 went pretty smooth. But when I got up to 354, which should be relatively light for low bar squats, even though it's paused, they definitely felt a little bit heavier than even the high bar squats had felt a few days prior. So after I did that, I just capped it there. I didn't do another set, because the whole goal of this light squat session is to get the technique, the mobility, keep that all fresh. I call it, greasing the groove, but not cause too much extra fatigue. And that's what we did. We'd finish off the week before heading off to Cabo, where I'd have a few days off.